So I'm going to confirm this and go live, and then just fade up the audio, and then I'll cue you, Dave.
Okay, great.
Okay? So let me know when you are ready.
I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our favorite part of the week. It's time to listen to Sounds of Health, where we share the stories, people, and resources that help others to improve their physical, emotional, and financial well-being. I'm your host, Dave McNiven, and today I'm excited to welcome our guest, Melanie DiNicola. She is the owner-operator of Senior Care Authority, where they help adult children and seniors to navigate life changes and care challenges. Welcome, Melanie.
Oh, thanks, David.
How are you doing today?
I'm awesome.
Great.
Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being here and dedicating some time out of your busy schedule for us. We appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So we're going to start with a question that I've started to adopt that a good friend of mine kind of came in and gave me. And that question is, what makes you happiest these days?
Aw, that's easy. I have a new granddaughter. Well, she just turned a year in April, and watching her is the happiest thing of my day.
That's amazing.
Right?
Yeah, I can only imagine what that's like.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
How much time do you get to spend with her?
As much as I can.
Yeah.
So they live pretty close by, and I pop in as often as I possibly can. I'll spend time with them tonight.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you have family in the area, you're local, and...
Yeah. I've been, I was a lifetime Guilfordite and just a transplant to Brantford recently.
That's great.
So yeah, I'm along the shoreline.
Very nice. I think when you and I met, we talked about all those Guilford connections. Mm-hmm. We've had a few Guilford guests. Guilford's actually been a very big part of this podcast, it seems.
Yeah. Well, it's a great place.
I'll jump in here. I was born and raised in Guilford, and now I live in Brantford as well. Yeah. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's probably the reason why we started off with guests
Everything
from Guilford.
comes out of Guilford. I think me and my friends have a joke that the entire world just basically comes from Guilford at one point.
That's pretty funny.
Not a bad place to come from.
No, definitely not. And we are live streaming on Facebook today, so thanks for agreeing to that too. This seems to be something that Jason really enjoys doing, so we allow it when we can.
Jason's getting me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. So we definitely want to kind of dive into all of the things that you're doing with your company, but we always start off by asking our guests, what was the path that led you to where you are today? Because I always find that it's really fascinating to see what people's journey is. So can you tell us a little bit about how you started and what brought you to do what you're doing now?
Yeah. Well, my background is in fundraising.
Okay.
So my adult daughter has cystic fibrosis. And when she was diagnosed, I would have loved anything to be a scientist or a doctor to cure it.
I'm sure, yeah.
But I didn't really have that skill set. So what I did discover was that I was great at raising money. So I made a career out of it. And I became the executive director of a nonprofit called the CF and MS Fund, raising money for cystic fibrosis and multiple sclerosis.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So rewarding. The philanthropic arm of a Fortune 500 out of Waltham, Mass. And we did some awesome things together. And then I became a senior development director for the Connecticut chapter of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. That was my next journey. I needed to be closer to home. My daughter was struggling. My parents were struggling. I was that sandwich generation.
Yeah, right. Gotcha.
So I took a position with the Connecticut chapter. And in the years that I was raising money, we developed 5 drugs that treat the disease at the cellular level.
Wow,
right?
that's incredible.
So not just the symptoms.
Yeah.
So what I saw with my daughter was incredible.
Yeah.
So in college, she really suffered, but she started one of those modulators and her health improved. And then there was COVID, which surprisingly really improved her health.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in what way?
Well, the rest of the world kind of stepped up to the infection control that CFers are taking every day of their life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So washing hands, distancing, masking, that's something that she did most of the time. And then everyone else did it. So she was typically in the hospital 2 to 3 times a year. During COVID, she wasn't in the hospital at all.
That's amazing. So what exactly is cystic fibrosis? How does it affect people?
So it's a genetic disease. You're born with it, and it doesn't allow chloride to pass through the cell, which ends up causing a lot of problems in your body. Typically, the most affected areas are your lungs and your pancreas, but it really affects every area of your body.
Yeah.
So the lungs, they develop chronic infections, which typically lead to the need for a lung transplant.
Okay.
So, but with these new modulators, they've seen a decline in the transplants. They've seen an increase in births. So people who were told you can never have a child are having their families now.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So you obviously had this personal experience with your daughter. What age did she get diagnosed?
So she was diagnosed late.
Okay.
And what we did when she was diagnosed, it was probably, all right, so she was born early,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So a lot of her lung issues were attributed to her prematurity.
Gotcha, okay.
And it wasn't until she was diagnosed with an infection in her lungs, and the bacteria is Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Don't ask me to spell it.
we won't. There won't be a quiz on that.
At one time, I could spell it backwards. But,
Wow.
Yeah, because I was like, what is this? And that's when the red flags went up, and they said, well, we don't really see this in people unless they have CF.
Okay.
So then they did genetic testing, and she has 2 very rare mutations. So she was diagnosed at 10,
Okay.
but had a decade of challenges.
Gotcha. Okay. So
Right.
you were in and out of the hospital during that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And what were you doing during that time? Were you working or?
I was working in the school system. I had the same hours as my children. I was a
that's great.
paraeducator. I needed to be accessible to her. So it was perfect.
So
right?
then she gets diagnosed. I'm guessing it's not as easy as, okay, well, now I'm going to go raise money. And how did you find that path? Like, I realized, so I used to work for the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And with Parkinson's, like, I was there in their first few years of existence. And I watched this entire Parkinson's community finally finding their voice and finding a way to be active and get involved in finding a cure and all of those things. And it was really amazing to see. So I know there's probably a direct line from her diagnosis to you getting involved as a fundraiser, but what did that path look like for you?
So way back when, the search engine was Ask Jeeves.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And I can remember being online and asking Jeeves a ton of questions. And Boomer Esiason came up.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So Boomer has a foundation called the Boomer Esiason Foundation.
Right.
And it's because his son Gunnar has CF. Gunnar and Tiffany are around the same age.
Okay.
And he immediately wrote back to me. I emailed him. He wrote back. And then I got involved with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation local chapter.
Gotcha.
I was
Okay.
directed by her care team at Yale. And I started volunteering. I didn't know, I'd gone to a fundraiser. I thought, wow, this is kind of fun. It was a big gala in somebody's backyard in Glastonbury. They raised a ton of money. And just the sense, that feeling under the tent that everybody was making a difference.
Yeah.
I wanted that. And so the next year we did that in our backyard, and we had almost 400 people.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
So you started as a fundraiser, as a volunteer fundraiser.
As a volunteer fundraiser. And then I met the folks from Global Partners.
Yeah.
They were raising money for CF and MS. They asked me to sit on their board of directors, and then they asked me to run the foundation.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that kind of work. I mean, you obviously have a direct connection with your daughter, but the impact that you're having on a much broader community is such a great feeling, right? I mean, it's just, you must have felt amazing while you were doing that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And to see those drugs come to fruition, right?
Yeah.
And to see the change in the median age of survival and people thriving now.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
Yeah.
Now, the organization that you were working for then, were they funding research and also doing patient care? Like, what was the allocation for the funds?
Cystic Fibrosis Foundation is mostly for research, but they do have other programs as well.
Yeah.
But they're the world leader in research for a cure.
Gotcha. Okay. That's awesome. And then you started to transition to the Connecticut chapter.
Yes.
And that was because of scheduling and family and all of those things, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Tiff was really struggling. She went to Quinnipiac, and she insisted on staying at school. The whole reason she went to Quinnipiac was so that she could come home easily when she wasn't well. And I remember her senior year just kind of begging her, why don't you just come home? Let me take care of you.
Right.
And she's determined.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So she stayed in school. At one point, her lung function was down to 40%, which is pretty scary.
Yeah.
That's when they start
challenging.
talking about lung transplants. So,
Right.
so that was the reason that I was with the Connecticut chapter, is to make sure that I wasn't traveling all over. I needed to be close to her.
Gotcha.
And at the same time, my parents aging and having lots of challenges.
Yeah. So like many of us, that now you're starting to take care of your children, but now at a certain point, taking care of your parents as well.
Right.
And so that informed your kind of path into this work, correct?
That's the segue to where we are today.
Gotcha. So tell me a little bit about how you went from doing the foundational work to this company.
So COVID, with all of its challenges, and I kind of gave you the silver lining for my daughter, which was wonderful. But it wasn't that way for my parents. They got COVID and it affected them terribly.
Sure.
They went from independent to needing 24-hour care. And so we were able to get 24-hour care in the home for a while, but then Dad was having more challenges and we needed to find some place. And so I'm one of 8 children.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm the youngest. I have 7 brothers. And I'll let that sit for a minute.
7 brothers, and you're the youngest. That must have been an interesting upbringing.
Yeah. But it was such a challenge for all of us, right?
Yeah,
to watch
right.
our parents, to each have a different perspective of what their needs were. And I didn't know of any resources out there to help guide us, right? So it was a combination of things, here's my daughter, she's doing better, she's thriving, she's healthy, and here's an opportunity, right? That a problem that needs a solution, right?
Right.
That was what I was thinking. I'm like, there's got to be more help out there. So I've always liked running my own show.
Yeah, right.
And so I decided it was time to branch out and do my own business. So I did a deep dive into different senior care opportunities. And Senior Care Authority is a franchise.
Okay.
It started out in Petaluma, California, about 16 years ago. And they align mostly with my values. So it's not a placement company. It is an advising company.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So families have challenges. They need help. They need solutions. They need options.
Right. For sure.
So we sit with them. We learn what their goals are, what their needs are, what their financial needs are, emotional, social, and the family as a whole, because it really is holistic.
Yeah.
We knew firsthand, my brothers and I, it affected everyone. So that's the way we need to approach it.
So you try to get the family involved as much as possible?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, we do that too with what we do with Medicare. People are sometimes trying to navigate that world on their own. And when they find us or when we find them and we can help to support them and educate them on things, I always ask them, do you want anyone else involved? Is there a family member? Because it's not something that it's hard if you're not doing these things every day to really learn it and know it. So it's always good to have that other ear, that other person who's at least aware that when something comes up, you have someone to call.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And we all need that support system.
Yeah.
Right.
It helps.
No matter what age we are, but especially as we get older.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's very true.
Maybe don't catch everything, and to have that second set of ears
Right.
is super important.
Yeah. So your path seems like it makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, you were faced with a challenge and you found a way to overcome it, or at least meet it and work on it. And I think that's really commendable. That's really amazing that you've done that in 2 different industries and 2 different careers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I like to think of myself as a problem solver.
Yeah.
Right. And it is a challenge, but what is it? I think every single person has something to offer. So if you figure out what your strengths are and you tap into those, Like I said, if I was a doctor or a scientist, I would have loved to have cured CF by now.
Yeah, for sure.
Sadly, that's not me.
Yeah.
But I did what I can. And
Yeah, which is a huge thing. And it's a necessary part of the entire process, which is amazing. Now, you haven't been with this company for a long time, right? How long have you been in business for?
So like I said, it's a franchise. So
Yeah.
I decided to purchase about a year and a half ago. It was December 2022.
Oh, wow. So pretty new to you. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And they have a great training process and rigorous training. So I'm a certified senior care advisor and certified dementia practitioner. And I didn't get those certifications until March of last year, at which time I really started practicing my business.
Gotcha. Okay. So there was a bit of a ramp up where you were getting certified, learning the business.
Right.
I'm sure there's a lot of
Much
different
like the
aspects.
insurance, right? And
Yeah.
getting licensed and
Yeah,
whatnot.
for sure. It's that learning the skills and the getting the certifications and the appointments that you need to do the work is a completely separate part from actually running the business. So you have to have all these various skill sets. I'm sure you're finding that as well, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
One of my favorite books is The E-Myth Revisited.
yeah.
Have you read that?
I haven't, no.
It's old. It's about 30, 35 years old. I can't remember who the author is, but I've been reading it. And it just, the difference between wanting to be an entrepreneur because you like to do something versus running a business,
Right. Yeah.
right? And all the skills that are necessary.
Yeah. There's a big learning curve to that side of things. Yeah. And a lot of times you need help.
Right.
So did you find for you that you needed help? I know you do a lot of networking.
I do. Well, that's why I went with the franchise model, because there's a lot of support in that.
Yeah, it's built in.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have weekly meetings with some other franchisees who purchased around the same time as I did. And then we have monthly meetings with the corporate team.
That's great.
So yeah, there's a lot of support.
Yeah, so you're not reinventing the wheel.
No. And also I like it because it's still my own business. So I
Yeah.
can run it the way that I want to, but there's a proven model
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
structure. Right.
Yeah, so you're independent and you have that freedom to kind of be creative and do those things and, identify and meet those challenges that you see. But then you also have this back end that's supporting you in those efforts.
Right.
Yeah, that is a great thing. How has the business been so far?
It's been great. Well, before we got on air, I was telling you it's been a challenging week.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
But it's great in that there's business out there. I mean, there are people that need help.
Yeah, we see it every
no
day.
lack of that. Mm-hmm. And with the baby boomers aging, where we have more and more people who need guidance.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for that opportunity. But it also, I need to take good care of myself,
Yeah, for sure.
because some of it can get heavy with some of the challenges that my clients are facing, and
Yeah.
to support them.
Yeah, so that self-care is important as well.
Huge.
Yeah. I mean, do you have things that you do to kind of make sure that you're staying healthy and focusing on yourself?
I do. I do a lot of yoga and meditating.
Oh, that's great.
I try to start my day with that. And I walk a lot. And I listen to a lot of podcasts.
That's great.
Health and wellness podcasts.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
And
I
so-
usually have the AirPods in my ear and I'm listening to some sort of podcast. Not always focused on health and wellness, but
Right.
sometimes storytelling and other things.
Yeah. And then time with my grandbaby.
Yeah, I'm sure that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing like, when you have a new baby in the family, spending time with them, and it really lightens everything up.
You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Now, so the yoga practice and the meditation, tell me a little bit more about what you do. I know we were talking, Jason, you and I, before we got on, but you mentioned a specific practice, right, for meditation?
Yeah. So during COVID, everybody was trying to find their path, I think, how
Yeah.
to stay sane, how to navigate such a changing world. And so I started following, and to be honest, Matthew McConaughey, who I adore,
Yeah.
was interviewing someone called Sadhguru.
Okay.
And he's an Indian guru. And I was immediately intrigued and started following Sadhguru.
Yeah.
And he's got an Indian ashram in India, but he also built one in Tennessee not so long ago. And I think he has a third in California now.
Oh, okay.
But so 2 years ago, I went to the Tennessee ashram and did a 4-day program called Inner Engineering. And it's just about meditating and helping yourself from the inside out.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So the practice, ideally you should do this practice twice a day on an empty stomach, but I like to eat a lot. So,
Okay. So you've adapted it to your lifestyle.
so maybe once a day I get it in.
Gotcha. How long do you do it for?
It takes me about 50 minutes in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you do the yoga as well consistently?
So that is combined the yoga and the meditation. Okay. So it's a series of breathing exercises.
That's great. Mm-hmm. And that helps you to kind of set your mindset for the day.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know Jason and I have talked about it in the past how, you want to have a consistent practice that helps you. I haven't found what I'm doing yet. I've tried to get back into exercise. So doing some resistance training and doing some walking and hopefully leading to getting back to running. It's funny. I did a quarter marathon last year. I was training for it again this year, had to cancel it because of our baseball schedule. But last year when I did it, I hadn't run in a while. And I was listening to Matthew McConaughey's book on Audible as I was running.
Was it Green Lights?
Yeah, it was Green Lights. Yeah.
Love it.
And I'd love him too. And it made the run go by so quick. And it was effortless. I was like, wow, this is great. I mean, talk about a guy who has a great voice to listen to.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really funny you brought him up. And I know he's been getting more and more into that coaching world. I saw something on YouTube the other day that he did, which was more about just like mindset and getting,
I'll have
healthier.
To start following him again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting stuff for sure. So that's great that you have kind of a set practice for yourself, because the business that you're in, while it's so rewarding and it's so important, can also be heavy at times.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're still, I'm sure, you have your daughter and you have your parent. Are they still with us too?
My dad passed about 6 months ago.
He did. I'm so sorry.
Actually, today is the anniversary, his 6-month anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. Mom's still here.
Okay.
And, she's doing well.
Yeah.
As best as she can.
Sure.
But yeah, it's been a lot of transition over the last year.
I bet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we went through something that was just unprecedented with the pandemic, and it changed our lives, even if we haven't even realized it yet, in many, many ways. So we get back to that normalcy, and I'm so sorry for your loss with your father. I lost my father years ago when he was 59.
Wow.
And we just celebrate. Well, it was a milestone for me this year because this was the year that marked me being alive longer without him than I was with him. And for some reason, that was something that has always been in my head. Like that, I don't know why. It was just, I always marked this year. Like, now I've been here for longer without him than I had him for. So,
right.
It's, having
How did you acknowledge that? What did you do?
Well, I went to the cemetery and I sat and talked to him for a while. And I tend to talk to him a lot. We've had a lot of instances when he passed away. I was really kind of concerned for some reason, the things that you focus on when you lose someone, that if I ever have kids, they wouldn't know him. If I ever got married, I was single at the time. I was in college. And all of those things, they kind of were met with different things at parts of my life. So for instance, my sons feel very connected to him. And my oldest has had these experiences where he thinks he's talked to him when he was a little kid. And
wow.
Yeah. And I actually have a grief story that I tell. We had a guest, my friend Frank Lador, on. He was one of our first guests, and he used to teach a class at Southern Connecticut on death, dying, and bereavement. And he would invite guest speakers, and I was one of them. So it gave me the opportunity to really tell my story. And so that helped me to kind of formulate and just stay connected to my dad for all of that time.
Right.
But, so it's just, it's an interesting process, and it's something that we're planning on having more guests on the podcast to talk about as well, because that's another challenge that we're all going to be faced with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even anticipatory grief, it's just, right.
Yeah,
it's
for
a process.
Sure. Yeah, because I don't think, a lot of people just don't even think about that or how to deal with it until it happens to them. But it's something that we're all going to have to deal with at some point in our lives. So being able to communicate and have those tools it makes it, I don't want to say it's easier because I don't think it's ever easy, but it helps. It definitely helps.
Right.
Yeah. So for you now with the business, when do you think is an ideal time for someone to kind of reach out? I mean, thinking of getting ahead of things,
right?
When's a good time for people to talk to you and contact you?
So it's never too soon. So you deal with people who are looking for Medicare insurance, right? So that's a great time.
Yeah.
As you talk to people, you should say, have you considered your planning for your future? And why don't you talk to a senior care advisor to find out what your options are so you can plan appropriately?
Right. And do you have interactions with people in like their financial planning, their financial advisors?
Do I have interactions with their financial?
Yeah. So if someone comes to you to kind of think about that aspect of their retirement plan, let's say, has it become a part of their bigger picture?
Well, their financial planning is definitely a part of that planning for the future. I don't personally get involved with that, but I advise them to make sure that they have those really important conversations with their financial advisor.
Okay.
And if they don't have a financial advisor, I have a network and I can share trusted advisors with them.
Yeah.
Same thing with elder law attorneys.
That was my next question.
Medicare specialists.
Yeah.
I really encourage everyone to review their plans every year.
Yeah.
So often people don't realize what they have and what they could have.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times they're not looking at things holistically. It's all piecemeal. So they're having, somebody to handle their Medicare and their health insurance. They're not taking that information and using it in their financial planning. And so it's important that you kind of get everybody talking, or at least that the information is shared between the various advisors that you have.
100%.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think for the senior placement, like I know a lot of people just think that they're going to be in their homes until they die. That's not always the best option, and it's not always the healthiest option, and it's not always possible.
Right. And it's important. So when you talk to an advisor like myself, we can discuss it. What does that mean? What does it look like staying at home? And what are the costs associated with that? Because so often people think that that's less expensive.
Yeah.
But if you really, if you need to modify the home, if you need to get 24-hour care in place, what does that mean? And will you always have the 24-hour care as you need it?
Yeah.
So these are all things that we discuss thoughtfully. Right?
Yeah.
With sensitivity, because no one really wants to leave their home. That's their home.
Yeah, of course.
But that can create a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an important part of the plan. I always tell people when I meet with them about Medicare, I always try to convey the fact that it is just a piece of the puzzle. It's not everything. So you want to use this and you want to make sure that you have what you need to protect your health, to protect your assets. But this is just a stepping stone. It's just a piece of the overall picture that you need.
Right. And that I convey the same thing when I speak to my clients.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's some of the groups that you and I are part of that connect us to all of these folks so that we do have these referral sources. For me, it's been so enlightening and so important, because when we're out there and we're in people's homes, or they're coming in and talking to us about their health insurance, we're learning more about them and their families and what other ways that they can use support.
Right. And to have that circle of influence in your pocket, then I love having the tool belt that I have and the qualified people like yourself to share with my clients.
Absolutely. I think it's crucial to be out there, and especially supporting the senior community. Yeah. So what are your plans for the future with the business? Are there certain goals that you have set for yourself, or certain areas that you want to get into?
That's a great question. Yes, I have an employee assistance program that I haven't even really delved into yet. So it's on my, yes, your ears are perking up. So I need to make more contacts. I've had a few conversations. I actually have a meeting tomorrow with someone to discuss this.
That's great.
Benefit provider. And I think it's really important. So what we do is go out to small and mid-sized businesses here in Connecticut and offer my services as a benefit to the employees.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So how many employees are dealing with trying to navigate a care system for their parents or themselves for that matter, right?
Yeah.
And they're using work time.
Mm-hmm.
They're stressed.
Right.
So I can come in and help them with that. And, employers are looking for ways to keep qualified employees.
Of course.
It's an added benefit.
Yeah. And
Right.
so important, because usually when people are met with challenges, they have aging parents. You're right. It affects them in the workplace, or they're using their PTO time in order to go and care for their loved ones, and they're getting burnt out.
Right.
They
Right.
don't have enough time to get that rest and that recuperation for themselves.
Right. So, yeah, that's an area that I really want to focus on next with my business.
That's great. Well, if there's anything we can do to get the word out on that, we'd be happy to spread the word.
Well, I appreciate
and help
this
you
right
with
now,
that.
this opportunity.
Yeah,
to
for
share
sure.
it.
Well, yeah, I guess we are spreading the word right now.
Yeah.
We'll
Already
say.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's great. And then how about, any events, or I don't know, like, are there things that you do that you invite people to, or?
So most recently, I've been going to local senior centers with other my colleagues in the same industry.
Yeah.
For instance, yesterday we were in East Haven.
I heard about this actually this
you
morning.
did?
I did, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it was great. We did this presentation on senior living options, right? And
Yeah.
we went right down the line, and, whether it's home, right, where you're
Yeah.
at and how do you do that, or whether it's independent living, assisted living, memory care, or a skilled nursing facility, and kind of what each of those is.
Right.
And what the cost is and how you do your comparisons and just kind of plan for your future.
That's amazing.
So it was really well received. We were in North Branford and in Guilford as well. And we'll probably pick up some more in the fall.
That's great. So that was, this most recent was at the East Haven Senior Center, right?
Correct.
And then North Branford and Guilford, you did the Meth Senior Centers as well?
Yes.
And this is you working with other people in your industry that, if you looked at, they're your competitors, right?
They are. Right.
But you guys work together and
We collaborate together
Yeah.
all the time.
it's
right.
one of the things I love the most, because there's no shortage of business out there for all of us in the senior community and serving seniors. There's enough business out there for everyone. And we do the same thing. I mean, we know so many brokers that are working in the Medicare space, and a lot of times you collaborate and you team up. And, if you're doing the right thing, then you're a friend of ours and we want to work with you. We
Right.
don't necessarily view you as our competition.
Right. And in our business, it's that relationship building.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's families. They need to feel comfortable with their senior care advisor,
Right.
with their Medicare specialist. Right. So if everyone has a different personality.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we all build relationships differently. And so it's nice to have different opportunities to meet different people.
It is. And to find somebody who you're comfortable with based on personality or whatever else
Right.
is there. Sometimes you're not the right fit, and that's okay.
Right.
Yeah. So that's great. It's nice to hear that there's such collaboration in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know the people that you're doing this with, they've been on the podcast, and they're all amazing people.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's great. And so how would people find you when they do need to reach out?
So the best way to find me, I have a great website, which you'll have that in the notes.
Yes,
right?
we'll definitely put that in the post.
So, and then to also let you know, I service Greater New Haven area and Greater Hartford area,
Great.
right?
Yeah.
So when I initially bought, I was just New Haven. I quickly added on Hartford,
Oh, great.
knowing that there was a need. So my website is great, and you can contact me right through there,
Okay.
or I can give you my direct line, which I'm happy for people to reach out 203-506-7689, and I have my Facebook page. I have a LinkedIn. Happy for you to follow me on social as well to
right,
get some great
perfect.
information.
And we'll be sure to put that in our post. Make sure that we give people the website and all of your social sites as well, so that they can find you easily and reach out. So that's really amazing. Is there another senior care authority in Connecticut at all?
There is my colleague in Fairfield County,
Okay.
Harold. He handles Fairfield and Westchester.
Okay.
Him
Great.
and his son. Yes.
So if there are people in that area too, if they contact you, you can refer them to him.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we're throughout the United States, right? So,
Yeah.
let's say your Aunt Betty is thinking about moving to Michigan, and you're really not sure. And if you gave me a call, I would hook her up with somebody in Michigan.
So you have the whole network. You work together.
Yes,
That's great.
absolutely.
Awesome. So I definitely encourage people that if you have these challenges, if you are approaching retirement, if you have aging parents, call Mel, talk to her about what these things look like, get ahead of it, plan. Or if you are in crisis, that's okay too, right? That's when
yes,
that's
most
when people are
definitely.
usually reaching out.
We try to avoid crisis,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Because sometimes when you reach out, when you're in a crisis, you're not able to do what you would prefer to do.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we're proactive instead of reactive, the results are much, much better.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. When you're in crisis, you got to get that Band-Aid on first before you can do anything else.
Right.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, that's great. It's been so awesome having you today. I appreciate you waiting for me. I know I was running a little late this morning. So, and we will encourage everybody to check out Senior Care Authority, share all of that information. I know I talked to you a little bit briefly about what the practices you use, meditation and yoga. Is there anything else that you do in order to stay healthy and
Well, I have been going to Orange Theory Fitness.
You have?
Yes.
Okay. So they're another group that's
you're
been
a
on the
fan
podcast.
as well?
You'll see me there in the Guilford location sometimes in New Haven.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I go, Guilford and New Haven.
My
there you
fiance
go.
is Rochelle, Coach Rochelle.
Oh, okay. I love Rochelle.
Yeah.
See, all these connections. That's
Right.
great.
And I love Orange Theory Fitness because
Yeah.
you just kind of go in and you let them tell you what to do for an hour,
That's awesome.
get your butt kicked.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason's been trying to get me in to
should
Orange
go.
Theory. I know
Yeah.
I need to. I keep saying I'm going to, and I just need to find the time. I've learned a lot from this podcast, and scheduling that type of thing is the next step for me to make sure that it happens.
Yeah. And then now I try to get out on the water kayaking as much as I can.
Oh, that's great.
I just acquired a new paddleboard from a fundraiser this past weekend, so I'll be doing that.
Those
Nice.
paddle boards are a lot of fun. They're addicting too.
Are
'Cause
they?
You get on the paddle board. It's kind of like meditation. It's nice and slow.
This is a stand-up paddleboard?
It is.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, let's hope I'm standing up.
We'll go slow.
Yeah. Good thing I'm a good swimmer.
Yeah, build up that endurance.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, and I think that's important for people to find what in your life you can do easily to get started. Just get moving, get out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you again, Mel, for being here today.
Thank you.
We'll probably have you back at some point if you'd like to come back on as things change and you're continuing to grow the business, or if there's ever any event that you're doing that you want some promotion, make sure you reach out.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. This
Yeah.
has been great.
It's my pleasure. All right. Well, thank you all if you're watching on Facebook Live, for joining us today. The new episodes typically go out on Monday. We had a slight delay this week, got it up on Tuesday, but be sure you're looking out for the new episodes. If you're just joining us here today, or if you're here just to listen to Mel, we appreciate you joining us for Sounds of Health, but be sure to share the podcast and go back and listen to some of our other guests. We're trying to bring more and more people on to talk about the resources that are out there so people can improve their emotional, physical, or financial well-being. And we appreciate you joining us and helping us to spread the Sounds of Health. Sounds of Health is brought to you by Nutmeg Insurance Advisors and recorded at the offices of Nutmeg Advisory Group. The podcast is produced by Jason Carubia and Dave McNiven with music by Rob Hames. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Your support means a lot to us, and we appreciate it when you like, subscribe, and leave a review. If you know someone who you think should be a guest on the show, please email us at soundsofhealthpodcast@gmail.com. Each week, we help you move the needle toward better health by spotlighting the stories, people, and resources that inspire and motivate others. And we are just getting started. Help us share these sounds, and don't keep us a secret.